So happy Friday. Jasmine is in Japan with a beautiful backdrop. I'm in my studio again, and I brought back one of my favorite old shirts. This is one of my classics. I haven't worn it for a while because I've been wearing all my new ones, and this is I always say everything's my favorite, but this is one of my favorites. It was my favorite at one time, and then it moved down, but I think it might be back up again because I haven't worn it for a while. But I like it. I like to practice with it on. I feel inspired. I was practicing last night at 10 o'clock at night, and I was like, I went up and changed just because I wanted to have it on instead of the whatever I had on. So anyway, that's kind of fun. So yeah, the Bears have something new. And I'm starting to wonder. I think the people at PetSmart, I think I must be in the break room as watch out for this lady. She's weird. Kind of like I am at Home Depot, because I'm the lady who comes in late at night and dinks all over and puts different things together, and people come and try to help me. And I'm like, no, no, I'm good. And I'm putting tubes together in the aisle, hoping nobody will notice before I go and buy whatever it is that I'm buying, and I'm dinking on stuff. So I do the same thing at PetSmart now with all the little costumes because, again, from Halloween to Christmas time, there's great costumes. And I know people are probably wondering, like, does this lady have like 10 guinea pigs at home and she dresses them all up and they run around? Or does she have like a bunch of bearded dragons or chihuahuas? Or what is she doing with like all these outfits every single time? Or, usually after the holiday, I come and try to, get them on clearance. But anyway, some of these don't really match our holiday, but they're still really cool. So Little Bear, we'll start with him first. So Little Bear has decided that he is going to be a turtle. And so, he has to lay on his belly and crawl around, but it fits him really good. The hat kind of keeps sliding down and I keep having to put it back. But, Little Bear is feeling slow motion now, and he's in his turtle mode, so that's kind of cute. Big Bear, oh my goodness, wait till you see this one. I think this one has to be one of the best ones I've seen. All right, so are you ready? It's not really holiday-ish, but so it starts off with that's his, ooh, he's kind of scary. And then, but wait till you see the back. Oh my gosh, he's like a dragon. He's got these wings, and again, here I am. I'm standing in the line. I got my little pile of cat food, and then I got all these outfits. And so, the cashiers just kind of look at me, they never ask, do you have any pets or anything? They just kind of probably wonder. Because, maybe they think I'm doing this to my poor cats. But clearly, this is a great costume. And this was on clearance. I try not to go crazy, but if it's on clearance, I mean, golly, I have to do it. And I love these wings. So can you imagine somebody dresses their poor little dog like this? Um, so anyway, there we go.
You'll have to tell them, oh no, I don't dress my guinea pigs. I dress my bears.
Yeah, that would even make me even more weird. I think you're right. I better just stick with my Chihuahua story or something, because they might really wonder then, golly, this lady is in here all the time. They do have stores, though, that sell bear clothes. They're very, very pricey. And, they were cool in the beginning, I think years ago, but I've been in there and there's nothing in there that's that awesome. I find better costumes at PetSmart for my bear than I find in I won't say the name, but the bear stores. So anyway, so that gets us started. So you had some great questions. So before we start our part 3 show and tell, concert tickets, autographs, and pictures, I want to follow up on a couple of things, and I thank you. Isn't the internet wonderful? So the first thing is thanks for, I knew that was probably a Bible verse. So you had mentioned, okay, first of all, I have to share my screen so you can see what I'm doing. My crazy screen that's got a lot of stuff on it. Okay, so let me make this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to move this down a little bit so I can read it. So yes, you know, this autograph that I had of Evander Holyfield, who I thought was a brave, you know, in the last story, and the timing would have been about right. He might have just been at the airport in Atlanta coming back from this fight because my grandmother was visiting, and I'd have to go back and try to figure out when exactly. But isn't it interesting that, you know, I thought at first with the numbers that might have been his TKO or his record, you know, wins and losses or whatever. But this part right here didn't make sense to me. And I thought it could be a Bible verse. And I trolled around a little bit and didn't find it, but you obviously did, Jasmine. So basically, you're right. I looked it up, and he even had it on the collar of his boxing robe in that fight, and it was, you know, Philippians rather, 4:13, I have the strength for everything through him who empowers me. And so this is what he carried into the ring when he actually defeated Mike Tyson at the MGM Grand Las Vegas 1996, and that would have been about right. So we discovered what that meant on that autograph. So that was kind of, you know, exciting and cool. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. The next thing, let's see, I'm going to stop sharing just for a quick second here and make this a little bit smaller. Take me a second here, hopefully not too long. Okay, sometimes it's always a mystery. All right, let me go back to this and see if I can get it smaller. Okay, well, let me go on to the next thing. We'll just talk about it. So you mentioned, and this is not in the order that you had your questions, but you mentioned how to play a ratchet and what does a ratchet look like. So let me actually see if I can do something here. I do have a picture of a ratchet pulled up, but I actually have a ratchet too. So if I can't get this to go, my screen is not cooperating right now. Golly, come on. How am I going to do this? Okay. Let me try to... I'm sharing my screen again. Maybe this will help. I'm trying to get down here at the bottom so that I can make this smaller. Oh, I hate it when we have technical stuff. Well, okay. I'll just show you the ratchet I have. So this is similar to a ratchet that is used in a lot of music, especially like concert band and symphonic band. It usually has these little ridges. This is made out of wood. This one, you hold this part and you spin it. But the kind that I was going to show you is like you hold it with two hands and it's got this little rotating, I guess, what would you call that? A rotating crank, a handle. And you just do that and it causes, it's the same kind of thing and it gives the same kind of sound. And in a lot of like Christmas music and different kind of, the Nutcracker, I think, has a ratchet. There's different things that have that ratchet sound. And so that's a ratchet. It's used a lot in concert band, symphonic band. You don't hear it a lot in like modern music, jazz or rock or anything like that. So that's the ratchet. So, and how to play a ratchet. The suspended cymbal. Why do they call it a suspended cymbal? Again, I had pulled up images, but hey, I've got one. So let me just show you. All it is a cymbal on a stand. Okay, so I've got a cymbal on a stand. It's used a lot, again, in concert band, symphonic band, doing rolls with soft mallets or just striking it with a stick or crashing it. And the reason they call it a suspended cymbal is different than a crash cymbal, or crash cymbals in symphonic band are two cymbals that you hold, you know, kind of like marching band too. You know, you crash them together. So you have the crash cymbals and the suspended cymbal. Those are kind of like in concert band or symphonic band, they'll either say CC, crash cymbal, they wanted a big crash, or they'll say suspended cymbal, but they want a crash on the suspended cymbal. So this is the same type of cymbal that would be on a drum set. So this could be a crash cymbal or it could be a ride cymbal. A ride cymbal, of course, you usually don't use in concert band. You usually just use the crash and you roll on it a lot with soft mallets. But they just call it a suspended cymbal because it's trying to differentiate it from the handhelds. So,
I've got it. Okay, it's due to context. I was like, so why would you call it suspended if they're all suspended? Yeah.
right, exactly. And it's mostly to differentiate symphonic band. In on a drum set, we don't say, people don't go into a drum set store and say, I want to buy a suspended cymbal. They would go in and say, I want to buy a crash cymbal or a ride cymbal. We all know they're on a stand, so we don't have to say the word suspended. But when you're talking about concert band, symphonic band, you want to differentiate it from, do you want this kind of crash or do you want this kind of crash? And the reason that's important is because, let's say you're a person who's playing the triangle, the crash cymbal, the snare drum. You don't have time to hold these two and then put them down and then grab that. And sometimes you're playing multiple things quickly. So sometimes you crash, drop your stick, pick up your triangle beater, and you're already on to the next thing. So sometimes, the sound is similar, so composers sometimes get picky about what they want, but really it's more about logistics, I think, at least from my perspective. Now, a composer's perspective, maybe they want the crash, they like the sound, they think it sounds different than this kind of crash. Also, both of them can be choked. You can crash and then immediately kind of choke them into your body so that they don't ring. Same thing with this, you can hit it and grab it. So that doesn't really change. Sometimes you choke it and sometimes you don't choke it. So that's our suspended cymbal question. The stick tricks, I want to show you a video. So you had mentioned like how fast Lalo and Skojo in our drum homework were playing that. And that was a really cool piece. I love that. Wasn't that awesome with all the different players and everything? Yeah, so they do play fast, and so one of the things that you brought up was, at one point there's a trick where he's playing one stick on the other stick, and I'll show you my rendition of how I kind of did that a bit, and I used to do it quite a bit more than I do. Back in the day, we didn't do a lot of tricks. We focused on the playing, but now there's a lot of tricks in the playing. We've evolved even more, and there's even more tricks. We used to do just some visuals and things like that, but it was kind of discouraged, actually. It was more about the playing, but now they're doing a lot more with the actual tricks and the playing, so that's kind of exciting. And that's a popular one. I've heard it called Walk the Dog, but I've heard other people, there's people want to name stuff different things. So I don't know that it has maybe an official name. I've heard it called different things, but I have heard it called Walk the Dog. And that kind of makes sense because you're playing with one stick and using the other. And if I can ever get my screen unshared here, maybe at the end, I'll show you a video of me doing that where I'm playing stick on stick and then I actually bring my foot up and actually put the stick on my foot, and still I'm doing the little walk the dog. So that was to answer your stick on stick question. And then the question about, so what does it do? It's just cool looking. It doesn't really do anything. It's just different. And then the word, I agree with you, rudimental drumming, I think is such a misnomer because there's nothing rudimental about rudimental drumming. I mean, at one time, there were they were the basic building blocks, but they're incredibly technically difficult. And so, rudiments make it sound like it's easy, and it's not. And I think at one time, the first 40 rudiments were fairly straightforward, and if you knew those, you were good to go. But now it's just like everything evolved so much, and all the hybrids, and they're still coming out with them and developing crazy names and hybrids of hybrids, and sometimes hybriding multiple things together, not just two or three, but like a bunch of stuff. And some of the names don't even make sense. At least in the beginning, the names kind of mostly named after the rudiment, but now they're kind of they're just helter skelter. But so anyway, that kind of addresses that. So we're going to start with where we left off. I'm going to put this down just for a second again and try to stop sharing maybe for a minute. Am I sharing now? Okay, let me stop sharing. Let me just see. I don't want to end the meeting. Let me stop. See if this can catch up. I want to advance the slides. Well, maybe I can just do it this way. Okay, here we go. All right, I finally can get it. Sorry about this. Okay, so We are going to leave off, or we're going to start rather, where we left off last time. Part, this is part 3 today, which I had no idea this was going to go so long. But you know, it's been really fun for me to go back and research some of this stuff, and it's been fun that you all have questions and that you've helped me discover some of the answers. So this is where we ended off. So Dot Cero. So first of all, I have to tell you a funny story about Dot Cero. I'll put this up so you can see me a little bit. Is that just yesterday, my high school friend, my high school friend friended me on Facebook. And so I friended her back, and she happens to be the wife of this gentleman here. His name is Dave Watts. And so the interesting thing about this is, like, we ended last week with this slide where we were going to start today. And, you know, and I, ever since I retired, moved back to Colorado, I was like, I should, you know, there's different people that I've wanted to kind of reconnect with and everything. And slowly I'm doing that. But she reached out to me yesterday, and I was just like, oh my gosh, the universe is just amazing how, like, she was on my mind and I must have been on her mind, because she kind of knew that I had moved back too, and was like, oh, I should see what Karen's doing or whatever. So anyway, we have plans to get together and have lunch. But so Dot Zero was a group back when I moved back to Colorado for a short period of time between about, I was here from 90 to 92. I grew up here, then I kind of went away to school and some other things, and came back for a short period of time. And I was here from 90 to 92. And during that time, I was living in Colorado Springs, and there was a Holiday Inn near my apartment where I lived, and I was doing heart surgery at the time, so I did not have a lot of time. But I happened to see on the marquee that there was like a happy hour thing one night, and it had a group, and it was a jazz group, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, I have this time off. I could actually go to that. And so I went to it, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I love these guys and I love this music. It was totally the genre that you like too, Jasmine. And I'd never heard of them. And I think they, you know, they were, I kind of looked them up, and they kind of got started around 1984. So they were fairly new around Colorado, and they were playing around. And so they happened to be there. And I was just like, wow, if I stick around Colorado, I really want to, you know, say, hey, I exist, and, you know, I'll come play tambourine or something. I can do percussion for you, or I could be a sub, or, you know, I was looking for opportunities. But anyway, I followed them along, and they started becoming more and more popular, started playing a lot of jazz festivals, putting out albums, and I followed them along. Even when I moved back to Atlanta in 92, I followed them, and I often practiced to their music. It was great music to play to. And so, interestingly enough, at some point I discovered that my high school friend had married Dave, and I didn't know that then. I knew that much, much later, I think. But anyway, at one point, when I was back on a break, we got together, and I got to go watch them again live down at the club here in Denver, where they were part owners and they played all the time, Jazz at Jack's. And I went down, and this was the night that I got to do that. So it was a while ago. You can see my hair's, you know, a little bit silver, but not quite this silver. This is one of the albums that I particularly really liked. These are the brothers. It's Dave and Steve, or Steven and David. I think Dave likes to go by Dave. Watts, they grew up, I believe, in Colorado. Dave plays guitar, Steve plays sax, and Dave has recently retired, so he is no longer playing with Dot Zero. He was with them for like 40 years, and he still plays and is doing some other things and enjoying retirement here living in Colorado, and he's still married to my high school friend. So that's kind of cool. And Dot Zero's still playing, and because of COVID, the club kind of had to close down. And my understanding is that they're starting to rev back up and to play more and stuff like that. So Dot Zero actually means something unique, and it's named after a town here in Colorado. It's a tiny, tiny little town that's like 2 trailers long when you drive through, maybe a bit bigger than that now, but I remember driving through it and being like, oh wow, Dot Zero, I know, isn't that the name of a band? And, you know, click, click, click. But anyway, That's the name of it. It's an appropriate name for a Colorado group. And so here was the night that I brought that little album cover and got it signed and got to hang out with them. And so you can kind of see all the different members. Oh, thanks for being Shelly's friend, Dave Watts, and Keep the Faith, Stephen Watts, and God bless. Sorry, I don't know one of the band members. And then thanks, Tom, another one of the band members. So anyway, Dot Cerro, I have plans to go back and hang out with them a little bit. And they totally are my thing. Rippingtons, a la Rippingtons, you know, a la Spyra Gyra, a la David Sanborn, all the good stuff that we like. So there we go. A nice local story, and how cool that we just reconnected like literally in the last 48 hours. So I thought that was kind of cool. And I told him I'd send him this. So hopefully I'm doing him right by what I'm saying. Okay, let's go on to Chester Thompson, a drummer. This was his autograph to Karen. God bless you, Chester Thompson. Gosh, did I put any more? Here we go. He's an American drummer, best known for his work with Frank Zappa, Weather Report, Santana, Genesis, Phil Collins. He has his own jazz group. So Chester has been around, played with a lot of people, got to meet him, and so that was really cool. Okay, so here, this is always kind of fun. So this is on my studio. You can see it back there. I've got a bunch of these. I need more wall space to put all my trinkets up. But I kind of thought this was fun. When I went to PASIC, I would carry around my Sharpie, and when I would recognize somebody, I would just say, hey, hi, can I get your autograph? And, you know, this is kind of before a lot of selfies and that kind of stuff, but I got a few pictures. And so this was kind of fun that I would get them to sign, and then I put their picture here next to their signature. And I do that on the wall too, so I kind of know who's who. So we'll just kind of go through each of these folks. So this is Mark Ford. We'll talk more about him in a moment. This is Billy Cobham, and here's his signature. And I actually had to double check and go back and look, and yes, that's how he signs it. And I have since wrote on my head Billy Cobham, because if something happens to me, somebody will be like, what is this scribble smiley face? You know, so now I put the little thing down below, Billy Cobham. But here's his picture. We'll talk more about him. EMIL Richards is this gentleman. Here's his signature. And Pat Petrillo here. And right here's Ed Thigpen, this gentleman over here. So we'll talk about each of these folks in a moment. I wanted to show this, but then I wanted to delve more into each of them. And kind of their contributions and how I know them and followed them along. So let's talk about Billy Cobham. So here's 1994, the Variety Playhouse in Atlanta. Got to see Billy Cobham Trio. So golly, Billy Cobham's been around forever, most notable for fusion. He was way ahead of his time. He had these massive drum sets. He's still around playing. He always had these really cool setups, just really interesting approach. Great drum solos. That's all I'm going to say about Billy Cobham. He just stands on his own. He doesn't need a whole description about his background. Ed Thigpen, somebody a lot of people might not know that much about. First of all, he is no longer with us. He is most notable for American jazz. He lived in Europe for a lot of his career, where he had more opportunities for jazz. He played with Oscar Peterson from 1959 to 65, so we've got some history there. He's performed also with Billy Taylor Trio and a million other people. He mostly played in smaller clubs. He was amazing on brushes. When I saw him at this particular clinic, he had just done a whole session on brushes, and here you have in the audience all these young drummers who probably don't even own any brushes, you know, sadly. But he was doing just amazing tricks with brushes, and just really just the classic jazz musician that often didn't get the recognition that, you know, nowadays a lot of popular drummers get. So Ed Thigpen. Mark Ford, he is marimba, most notably. He's at North Texas State. He has been past president of the PASIC, Progressive Arts Society. He, you know, has a great percussion program at North Texas State, which we've talked about before. And he's just great, big in education and promoting drumming and percussion at a really high level, and bringing the professional aspects to our what we do. We're not just a bunch of slam bangers. There's a lot to, percussion is a legitimate thing, just like piano or any other instrument. So Mark Ford, thanks for all you do for promoting our instrument and giving us some recognition and some credibility. So Emil Richards, also I found out in my research going back that he's no longer with us as well. He played with a bunch of people as well. You can read here, a lot of studio stuff. Gosh, I'm just going to hit the highlights here. You can read this. I'll send this to you later. But he's performed with a lot of people, but most notable for studio and a lot of music and television. Sorry, I have to keep moving this down so I can read my big screen. He is, one thing that, he played bongos on the theme song for Mission Impossible. Other television work included the finger snaps for the Addam Family. Lots of xylophone work, So he's probably on tons of stuff that everybody's heard, but his name's nowhere. He doesn't get the credit for that finger snap or any of those other things. So he was in the studio doing percussion for movies and television. And so, 1932 to 2019, that's a really long career, and probably one of the, first call people back in the day. So he also was a collector, and this was something I didn't know when I met him. So over his career, he collected over 350 instruments, most of them coming from eastern portions of the world. And he also wanted to try to keep his collection together. He has all kinds of exotic instruments, some of which I have to look these up because I don't know what they even are. So that would be a fun assignment for somebody like Jasmine, who's my super sleuth detective. But some of these we could probably do a session on looking them up and seeing pictures of them and seeing how they're played. But I believe he donated a lot of these to a museum. I believe it's the Percussive Arts Museum, the one that's in Indianapolis, which I got to go to, and it's very cool. They have this big glass, and behind it is just, they don't even have room for everything. They have bookshelves or utility shelves, kind of like I have in here, of just stuff that's been donated with little tags on it that I hope, will someday they'll rotate through their museum there, and with stories and history. And it's a really cool museum if you ever get to Indianapolis. They have drum sets from Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich and Neil Peart and everybody. So anyway, there's also a bunch of percussion stuff there as well. So here's another one of my drum heads. So over here is Louis Bellson, and actually this was pre-printed on the head, but I do have his signature several places. This one was pre-printed on this head when you bought it. So sometimes they'll have pre-printed ones, and then you go around and get other people to sign. This one I got myself, and here's me with Louis at a PASIC conference. Here's Alex Acuna. We've talked about him before. Here's his signature. Dave Weckl right here. Is Dave's pickle? Yeah, his picture's right there. Dave Weckl, we've talked about Dave. Ndugu Chancellor right here played with, we'll talk about him in a moment, a bunch of different people. So here is his picture and his signature. And then up here, blocking my view, so I can't really see what's up here, is, Peter Erskine. So right here is Peter Erskine. We'll talk about him. Here's his picture. So I try to put the picture next to sort of the autograph, and then we'll delve further into each of these guys. Starting with Louis Bellson, again, another signature over here on this framed picture, and then here's myself with him, and here's autograph. And so Louis Bellson, oh gosh, I don't have any more about Louis, I guess because you know what? We already know Louis. I try to put a lot of words on the slide if we already kind of know him. We did a whole session on Louis Bellson, but he did a lot with double bass. He was kind of the first, even though he was a jazz player, he played a double bass and was great with drum solos. He was kind of like right below Buddy Rich was Louis Bellson all the time, and super nice guy. Notice the Remo, he's got rototoms on this drum set. I mean, this was like way ahead of his time. He incorporated, like Billy Cobham had rototoms, but he played jazz fusion. Louis played pretty traditional, straight up jazz kinds of stuff. And so, but he kind of had this drum set that looked like a rock drum set. So that was kind of unique back in the day. And he had a big drum set for a jazz player because a lot of jazz players just have a tiny little drum set. So he had a unique spin. He did a lot of interesting double bass stuff before. Nobody in jazz was doing that sort of thing. So Louis brought a lot to innovate and kind of cross boundaries with different drumming styles. So Peter Erskine started his career when he was with the Stan Kenton Orchestra. He also was with Maynard Ferguson. He was with Weather Report. He played, alongside Jaco Pastorius. He did a lot. He's on a lot of the Weather Report albums. And he even toured with Chick Corea. So, I mean, those are some amazing credentials right there. So, and I believe Peter is still around. Ndugu Chancellor, again, I found out in my going back and looking that he's not with us anymore as well. He performed with Herbie Hancock. He recorded with Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbard, Bobby Hutcherson. He was oftentimes a sideman in jazz and blues and pop music. He's on Michael Jackson's Billie Jean. He got a Grammy nomination for Let It Whip with the Dazz Band. He's also played with George Benson, Stanley Clarke, the Crusaders. I mean, you can just read that list. Oh my gosh. He played with a lot of people. But you know what? I don't think a lot of people walking down the street, if I said, hey, who's Ndugu Chancellor? They'd be like, I have no idea. Whereas some of these other folks have gotten a lot more kind of recognition. So I was really happy to have met him, got to see him in a clinic. And quite honestly, I knew a lot of this work, but didn't really know of him myself. So embarrassingly enough, but I do now. And hopefully other, newer folks come along can appreciate his contributions and all that he brought to drumming. Dave Weckl, we've talked about Dave before. So here's a poster with Dave Weckl, An Evening with Dave Weckl. I don't see the ticket price, but that was in a small little, it was a clinic in Connecticut. And actually he has some roots to Connecticut. So he was back home and he was just doing a clinic at the local music store. And I was up in Connecticut for a year and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go see Weckl. So I saw him there. I didn't get his autograph until much, much later at a PASIC conference and saw him and obviously recognized him. And I still honestly see him this way. So when I see him now, like he's recently on Modern Drummer magazine, I'm like, oh my gosh, Dave, what happened? And I'm like, well, what happened to me too? Because when I hear the word Dave Weckl, I picture this picture right here because that's how I think of him. And now Dave's like an old man like me, but he still can play like anything. So, yeah, all these guys got older, like you have them freeze framed in your, Steve with Steve Gadd. I still picture him the way I knew him back then. And, and I've seen him a bunch of times since then, but it's just like, that's the picture I have in my brain of what Steve looks like. So same with Weckl. He's still doing great, amazing stuff as always. Great technical abilities. Alex Acuna, Alex grew up wanting to be a soccer player, and he ended up being this world-class percussionist. But here he is playing drum sets, so that's kind of neat. You don't get to see that picture all the time. Most of the time you're seeing him doing something like this with cowbell or some kind of Latin percussion. Super nice guys, played on everybody's album. He was another one who everybody who was anybody, I'd pull out the album. Who's the drummer? Who's the percussionist? Gadd, Acuna, a lot of the time. So anyway, he's added a lot of, percussion is just the spice, chicken soup is chicken soup. But when you throw in some spice, that's Alex Acuna. And just enough spice, okay? Not dumping the whole thing in there, just the right spice. So that's an art to not overplay and to do the right thing, what the music wants, and add just the right color. And you don't even know it's there, really. That's when you know it's good. It's like you taste the soup and you're not like, oh, that's, and you recognize it. It's there. It's good. but you don't even know it. That's what makes it good. So that's, interesting. Okay, here's another drum head. Who do we got on this one? So here, and again, I wrote on my head, I think I did, and if I haven't, I will. Right here, this would be unrecognizable if somebody came in here and, inherited these things. They'd be like, what the heck who's this? So that's Steve Smith from Journey. I got to write that down. Steve Smith, Journey. But here's Steve Smith. He's still around doing amazing things. To Karen, best wishes, Vic Firth. I've had got to get a bunch of his autographs. So here's Vic Firth. We've talked about him. We'll talk about him again. This is the pre-printed Louis Bellson, so that doesn't count. Here we have William F. Ludwig II. Before he died at a PASIC conference. I played Ludwig. My initial second drum set was a Ludwig drum set. Here's Ed Shaughnessy. Thanks, Ed Shaughnessy. Here's, do I have a picture of Ed Shaughnessy? Yes, it's down here. Got to meet him a bunch of times. Over here is, Remo Belli. So Remo, as in Remo Drumhead. So his first name is Remo, his last name is Belli. So to Karen. Here's his signature. Steve Gadd, of course. I've got Gadd signatures everywhere. Every time I see him, I just have to get another one. I'm just compelled. So there he is with my picture with him. And then Dom Famularo. So here, Karen, enjoy drumming Dom Famularo. What a class act. He is the ambassador for drumming. And I love that. Enjoy drumming. A lot of people, not everybody's going to be a world-class drummer, and there's so many levels. There's beginners, there's people who just play in their garage, there's people who teach, there's people who, are on stage. There's room for everybody. Everybody could be a drummer, and I think everybody should be a drummer. We'd have a better world. So enjoy drumming. What a positive, awesome message, at whatever level you're at. It doesn't say be the best in the world, otherwise you don't matter. It's like contribute in your way, wherever you are, wherever stage of life, whatever. I'm bucket drumming with 100-year-olds right now, and it's all still good. I don't need to be in an arena. I'm getting a lot of satisfaction I had 10 people the other day in memory care with smiles on every one of their faces, and they had a blast. And we played different instruments, and they learned some stuff, and they had fun, and I had fun, and that's all we need in the world, right? So enjoy drumming. Okay, so Gadd, golly, we have to at least have another slide on him. So here he is playing, he started out playing at Disneyland in the Mickey Mouse Club. So here's little Steve Gadd. Here's Steve Gadd the way I picture him still, and he mostly looks like that. Here he is in action. He needs no more introduction than that. We've talked about him. We've done entire weeks just on Steve Gadd. Here's a recent contest that I won, and I got an autographed page from his recent book and only book that he has, which I love, and I sometimes will play it from start to finish on a Saturday afternoon. And the cool thing is it comes with a soundtrack, so you're playing with him. So you put it on, you see him, you hear him, and we're together. And that is really cool. That's fun. And, and at the end of it, it's a good workout. It's not an easy book. This is not a book I would take a beginner through. It takes a little. And even for me, who's been doing rudimental drumming, he has a different approach to things. And it's kind of, there's a few things that I get stumped up because I'm wanting to do the predictable thing, and Steve turns it on a dime, and we're doing the unpredictable thing. So it's like, oh no, I want to do that, but he wants it like this. So we're moving it. We're changing things. So this was a really cool, and actually, I have to say, I found some mistakes in his book, and I sent it to him. And so I don't know if that had anything to do with anything, but he did correct it in the second version of the book. I was like, oh, that thing that I brought to their attention, because I could tell what they were trying to do, and you could tell it was just, there's a lot of R's and L's and little notes. And so it was just like, it's no wonder there's a few little things here and there. So anyway, that was kind of cool to be able to contribute to making things, even better. So here's a poster I have of him. Again, he signed it in a special pen. So I've got, I don't know how many signatures, at least 5 or more, but this was pretty recent. So this is kind of exciting for me. Vic Firth, I mean, gosh, he's even lay people know Vic Firth. You walk down the street, maybe they would. So, he's on everybody's drumstick, and he really revolutionized drumsticks. We didn't used to have a lot of choices, and he's got a lot of choices, and he's got a lot of good products that he puts out. So here's the logo. Here's him in the early days. Here's him in the later days. He had a long career playing with the Boston Symphony, and he was an example of somebody who was a player but changed everything for everybody. Same with Remo Belli with drum heads. So, Remo changed the head, Vic Firth changed the stick. A lot of these people influenced drum sets and modern equipment. So it's really, really cool. Here's another, Vic Firth slide. He gets 2 slides. Here he is again on a poster. Do care and best wishes, Vic Firth. So I have him on a poster. I have him, all different places. So what a classy guy. Super professional again. Brought a lot of professionalism to the drumming world, which I think is important so that we're recognized equally with other instruments, because I think sometimes people don't even know. They're like, oh, you guys read music? Oh my gosh, if you only knew, if you only saw some of it, I'm not saying that everybody has to or whatever, but it legitimizes our instrument is not just a slam bang in the back, like we actually are musicians, believe it or not, hopefully. Okay, Ed Shaughnessy, golly, probably a lot of people knew of him, saw him, maybe didn't recognize his name, but he was with the Doc Severinsen Tonight Show band for like a million years, pretty much the whole time. And here's an old picture. Wow, look at that curly, dark hair. Who is that person? So it's a very dark, old picture. So here's Ed Shaughnessy. Here's another. He signed, I just ripped this out of whatever I had at the time, rip it out of the magazine and get his autograph. And here's another on the back of the program, I think. To care and best of luck, Ed Shaughnessy, and then another picture. So I saw him a number of times. And, Ed Shaughnessy wasn't probably, in my opinion, the best drummer on the planet, but he had a good gig and he kept it, and he did his job, and because he did his job, he had a gig for a long time. So there's a lot to be said for showing up on time, being nice, having a good attitude. You don't have to be the best player in the world. In fact, if you're the best player in the world and you're a jerk, nobody cares. If you're a nice person and you can play reasonably well, you'll get the gig. And that's a really important concept for new young players to realize. You can come in with all your fancy tricks, but if you're not on time and aren't willing to be communicated with, nobody's going to play with you. They're not going to call you back. There's plenty of choices. There's dime a dozen good players. So next. So Ed Shaughnessy, that's what he brought, was just this longevity, and be able to keep a long gig for a long period of time and do his job. Remo Belli, okay, as everybody knows, the logo, it's on a lot of drum heads. At one time, he was the drum head, the only one for the most part, and now there are some others that are also very good. They made color heads recently, which is fun. Here's back in the early days. Here's him in the more recent days, and he revolutionized the drum head. And there's tons of choices, and in all aspects, marching, concert, jazz, drum set, everything. So yeah, Remo Belli, wow, shocking. So I'm just glad I got to meet a lot of these guys, because a lot of the young people coming up, they probably know that name, but it wouldn't recognize this picture or know what he did or anything. They just go and buy the thing and put it on their drum and call it a day. So hopefully, hopefully teachers like myself are, passing this along so students can realize where stuff came from, and that, give honor to some of these folks. And we're still evolving. We're not done. It's constantly an evolution of product, and some of it's a little crazy out of there, but there's some really good stuff still happening. We haven't finished yet. So here's Dom Famularo. So here's his signature, enjoy drumming, which I just spoke about. What a great message. I mean, this is so Dom right here. That smile. What a classy guy. If I had to give him a title, I would say ambassador of drumming for the world. He really is the face of positivity. And when I went to his clinic, again, he wrote it over here too. Same message. This was like probably 10 years apart. His message is the same. And that's him, enjoy drumming. And golly, he again is probably not the most technical guy in the world, but what he's done for drumming is that he's the glue. He's the consistency. He's the positive force, the energy, the promotional. He's like the father of drumming, He's like the grandfather. I don't know. I don't want to make him sound old or anything, but he's like the fun uncle, of drumming. And if you had a problem or something, I mean, he's just a really good guy, and he's been struggling with some health issues more recently. I've gotten a chance to be on some live streams, and Sabian is doing a lot with education, and Dom is teaching drum lessons all over the world. He has a schedule where he has people in every single time zone, and he's still promoting the positive energy of drumming, which I think is really amazing. So William F. Ludwig II, finally got a chance to meet him. This is, a book, the autobiography, which I probably need to get and read. I do have some drumming books, but I don't know that I have this one. But here I got a chance to meet him before he died at a PASIC function. And again, my second drum set was actually a Ludwig. I still have it, my Vista Light green drum set, which is super rare. There's very few in the United States, or in the world actually ever made. But Ludwig was or is a great company, still making great drums. So yeah, they were sort of my first favorite drum set, and now there are several that I like. Here's another one, my most recent drum head, and it's got John Wooten, who we'll talk about in a little while. And notice he's got a little rudiment here. We'll have to figure out which one it is. And here, notice they both did the same thing. Here's Bill Bachman and a couple of his books that I teach out of and I love. He plays tenors. I think each of them has a slide coming up, and he's got a rudiment. And then Giovanni Hidalgo, which is down here, world class. Oh, he wrote a little drum ditty too. And so that's kind of fun. And he even put the date. This was 2019 PASIC. And I got to see him play at a clinic, and he's having some health issues as well, particularly with his fingers. And he's actually, he has diabetes, and he's losing parts of his fingers, but he can play. He still can play. He was all taped up, and he's only my age. But world-class conga player. And Lalo Davila, who I sent out last week in the homework, who's out of Tennessee. Great school. If I was encouraging a young person to go to a percussion program, I might consider North Texas State or the school that Lalo Davila is at in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, which depending on what you're interested in, there's different pros and cons, but putting out great music, great books. His wife is Julie Davila. They're commonly seen at WGI and DCI events. She does marimba stuff as well as tenors and percussion ensemble. They write a ton for Roloff Productions, so they are a dynamic duo. And then down here, I don't have his autograph, but I have his picture. Tim Jackson, tenor player, amazing tenor player. We've talked about him before. Has a tenor pad named after him, and is still teaching and playing. And all of these guys have contributed a lot, mainly to, not so much Hidalgo, but all the others are in marching percussion, writing tons of cadences, writing marching shows for marching bands, really bringing up the next crew of students into, like, you got to go through Bill's book, you got to go through the Wooten stuff, you got to be able to play the Lalo stuff. And if you do all this, then you kind of get blessed and you can survive in the world. So, but they're producing amazing content for all aspects of drumming. So let's see who's next. Okay, let's talk about each one. Wooten, John Wooten. Karen, keep jamming. John Wooten. Oh, do you recognize the rudiment? Maybe not, because it's probably one we haven't talked about for a long time. But this is the single Radamacue. So there's the single Radamacue, double Radamacue, and triple Radamacue. I don't have anything to play on right now, but bum dum bum dum. It's kind of hard to sing these little grace notes, but that's a drag and a Radamacue. So he wrote a Radamacue on there, which is kind of cool. Here's Wooten. And when I saw him, I said, thank you so much for writing good stuff, because as a teacher, I get bored teaching, boom chickie. So he writes great stuff and I buy it and I turn my students onto it. And I've played tons of his stuff with students. So it's fun. And I'm glad he's still writing good stuff. And it's fun for me too, because a lot of the stuff I can play with my students. I'll play the snare, they play the tenor, vice versa, that kind of stuff. So I love his writing. Bill Bachman is another one. I love his writing. He's written several books. He's got the bass book, the snare book, the quad book. I like the quad book, especially. He plays amazing tenors as well, writes great stuff. Happened to see him, got my picture taken with him, and just to, contribute a lot to the content that's out there and the next generation, because before that, when I was coming up, there was not a lot. There was Charles Wilcoxon and Haskell Har 1 and 2, and some drum set books that we've talked about, but I went through them all and I was done. And now what? So this was really great to be able to have, and I love teaching out of this stuff because it's fun for me to not be, bored. If the teacher's bored, the student's going to be bored and hate it. So the teacher needs to be excited about why we're learning this and what we're doing. So, LALO Davila. He's a professor, music director, percussion studies, Middle Tennessee State University. He's got a great background. He's an educator, a composer, an author, performer. And, he's huge in the Nashville scene. He's, great in the marching scene, and he does a lot with Latin stuff. So he merges things. Like in our last homework that we had, he merged his style of playing with Skojo's style of playing, which was really a lot of fun and very cool. So let's see. I want to save. Gosh, we didn't get to get to some of the stuff, and we're almost done. We have a couple minutes, but then I know we need to end. So let's see. Let me end the show. So we still have more for a part 4, and this is kind of, I'm still finding things, and as I find them, I'm updating this little PowerPoint so that this won't all get lost, and hopefully somebody will watch this someday and it'll be interesting to them. So I'm going to stop sharing. And any questions or parting words?
Okay, question list, here we go. On the double bass, how do you play them, and what's the sound that they're trying to get with a double bass?
So there are people who have 2 bass drums and 2 separate pedals. And there are people that have a double bass pedal, which is cool. I have both of those 2 scenarios, and they're different. Where you have 1 bass drum that has 2 beaters, and you have a pedal on the right and a pedal by your hi-hat with the left. So you can take your foot off the hi-hat, put it on the other pedal that's the bass drum, and you can do this back and forth thing. And you could do a ton of fun things between hand, foot, hand, foot, and turn it into a roll. And so, or you can just have this thunder going down below while you're doing stuff up above. And so it just makes you have another bass drum sound, whether you have 2 pedals on 1 drum or 2 pedals on 2 drums. And so, it's used mostly in rock music. And there's some people that are just phenomenal double bass pedals. And it's an area that I'm always trying to get better at, because I never got good at my my single bass pedal, because the pedal I had wasn't a great pedal. Not that I want to blame my equipment. You should never blame your equipment. But I could never hear it, so I didn't focus on it. Now that I have an electronic drum set, I can actually hear what it's doing, so I can actually practice it and work on it, and others can hear what I'm doing. I just didn't want to waste time spending all this time on that. I tried micing it, I tried recording it, I tried everything. And this is years ago. I didn't have anything. I was doing a lot of stuff on my own. So now there's no excuse for having a terrible right foot. And so I'm trying to get better at my foot because I was really hand heavy. Technical, 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 and not much going on down there. And so now I'm trying to lighten up and do more and integrate. That's kind of where I am with my personal journey, and there's always something to get better at, and that's one of the things I'm working on. One last question.
That was really cool. I love your presentations, because we've seen Ludwig on drums since forever. For instance, it's on every picture. Like those Buddy Rich photos that you showed us once. There was like a Ludwig drum, of course. So seeing these guys who created all this stuff is amazing. I mean, that's really fun. And
Well,
I've got other stuff, but we're out of time, so I will email them to you.
email them to me and we'll do them next time. And hey, I will see you live next week.
Yeah.
And then it'll be the next time that we'll do the rest of this. And thanks. We have a new person, Judy. I'm glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed it. And for the rest of you, I'll send it out and you can watch it later. Have a great week, everybody. Bye bye.